Okay, and we now begin our very first Zoom session in 120, Anatomy and Physiology of the Ear. This course is to be laid out quite the same as your acoustics course. There'll be the notes are listed inside the unit, and what I could do is even well, if you've been able to access this, then you probably can see it. But if I share screen here and share, and if let's see how to do this here. If I go to Ozarks, and I wish that little thing would go away there. Oh, I hate that thing that always, I wish that would go away. There's my emails. I don't need that. I can close that. Conversations. Okay, if I go to dashboard, I'm sure you can see this now. If I'm on the dashboard, I'll click up and we'll scroll on down all the way. Yours might look a little different from mine, but here's our anatomy one. If I click on that guy, then I see this screen here. And the part that I've omitted to tell people for some reason, I'm sorry about that, but you click under coursework. And now you will see the units pop up. So, and then when you click under units, you click there, and there's your stuff. There's your notes, and there's your PowerPoint. And in any Zoom sessions that I upload, like this one, after I'm done recording it, I will upload it as a YouTube and paste it here. So, going back again, and going back again, how did I get here? I clicked on the dashboard. Okay, I clicked under the dashboard of our course, and then once I did that, it brought me to this screen here. I then clicked under coursework, and once there are all the units. Click on Unit 1, and there's the stuff. You scroll down, you'll see the notes, you'll see the PowerPoint, and then any Zoom session that I upload will be there. So essentially, that's the long and short of things. So basically, this course is laid out quite similarly to your acoustics course 110. And I always do things that way just to keep things straight for any course I teach. You'll always see the notes loaded up in blue, the PowerPoints in red. And oh, good, we've got someone showing. Great, good to see you, Grace. All right, and so today is just kind of introduction. That's all we're doing is playing around. The nice thing about Ozarks is we've got longer semesters than what we have at some other colleges, and so that gives us a bit of a luxury. It gives us some room to kind of have some time to show everything, and therefore sometimes if there's a week that I'm not here, it doesn't mean that everything gets all screwed up. So that's always good. So, having printed up the notes, if you hadn't printed up the notes, I would stop the Zoom session, just kind of slow it down. I mean, if you're watching the recording and you haven't seen the notes, stop the recording, print up the ding-dong notes so you got some, and then we can go ahead. So, because I had a few emails from people saying, I can't find the notes, where's the dang notes? So basically, I even just sent out an email just a few minutes ago outlining that the one step I had forgotten to mention was you've got to click the box called coursework. When you see home and coursework, you got to click on coursework, then you'll see those ding-dong units. Alrighty then. Today, what we're going to do is just kind of give an overview of the whole ear. The way the course is laid out, if you start looking in the next units, you'll see outer ear, anatomy, physiology. And then you click on the next unit and you'll see middle ear, anatomy. And then the next unit will be middle ear, acoustics. And then you'll see inner ear, anatomy. And later on, inner ear, physiology. So in this course, anatomy is what it is, physiology is what it does. In other words, anatomy is the form, Physiology is the function, how it works. So the units are basically, the outer ear is the largest and the most simplest part of the ear. So we can get done the outer ear in 1 week, no problem. The middle ear, a little more complicated. We spend about, I'd say, 2 to 3 weeks on the middle ear. Then when you get to the inner ear, well, that's the heart and soul of hearing. We spend the entire rest of the semester just about on the inner ear. So the inner ear is where it's at. And then when you go beyond the inner ear, toward the 8th nerve in the brain, we spend a bit of time on that. But the biggest bulk of the course is on the inner ear. The course is called Anatomy and Physiology. Anatomy are the pieces and the parts, and physiology is how they work together. So that's essentially how your units are laid out. You move from outer to middle to inner ear. So without any further ado, why don't I start sharing screen, and let's look at our notes quick a sec for this course. And you can see that today what we're looking at is overview, anatomy, and physiology of the ear. And there I laid it out. Anatomy, form, what it is. Physiology, function, how it works. So basically, we're going to look at the outer ear quickly today. We're doing an overview of everything. I'm a big believer in context. If you look at the whole overview, then when you go back, you can look at the details, but you'll have still some idea about what lays out in the future. So we'll talk a bit about the outer ear today. We'll talk a little bit about the middle ear today. And I'll give you an introduction to the inner ear today. And then on page 2, we talk about the 8th cranial nerve, which is the nerve that leads from the inner ear to your brain. And then last of all, we'll talk about what they call the brain of hearing. In other words, the hearing centers in your brain, the central auditory nervous system. And that basically rounds out our area of discussion about the ear. So if we look at a PowerPoint slide, this is a weird looking slide. I'll pull it up here just to make it a little bit larger. And so what you can see in this slide are 2 ears at the very outsides. And oh, look at that. They got tuning forks making sounds in front of the ears. There you have it. Okay? So there's the sound waves coming in the ear. So you'll see the ear canal on this side. Then you'll see what I'm circling with my cursor here, the middle ear. And you've got the 3 little bones of the middle ear, the eardrum, the malleus, the incus, and stapes. We'll talk about those. And then you see this little black thing hanging down here. That is the eustachian tube going down to the back of your throat. Where I'm circling here with my cursor is the inner ear. And the inner ear, and if you look at the top here, these are your balance organs. And this is your hearing part of the inner ear. So you've got your outer ear, middle ear, inner ear. There's that 8th cranial nerve going to your brain. And look at how things cross over to the opposite sides of your brain. Okay? So you've got the external or outer, the middle, the inner ear, and the brain. That's essentially the whole big picture. Now let's look at it this way. A close-up. Okay? So now you're looking at the outer ear and the ear canal, the eardrum. And people always call this the hammer, the malleus, or the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. We never will again, okay? We'll call them the malleus, incus, and stapes. We'll get to that later. Then you've got your inner ear and your balance organs. And there's that cranial nerve going to the brain. Now, this picture's a bit weird because this inner ear isn't that big. The inner ear is really no bigger than your eardrum. And how big is that? If you look at the tip of your finger, okay, look at your fingernail, that's about the size of your eardrum. Okay, if you look at your finger dead on, that's about the size of your eardrum. That's also about the size of your middle ear. And that's also about the size of your inner ear. So these things are pretty small. Okay, they're not very big. And by the way, an inch is about this long, right? How many centimeters are there in an inch? 2.5. So what's a centimeter? About the size of your fingernail. That's just the best way I can tell you. It's easy way to remember. Just don't think it's this one. Anyway, so basically about the size of your fingernail, 2 centimeters. okay, which is almost an inch. All right, if we share screen again and look at our PowerPoint slide, so this eardrum really is oversized, or I should say this inner ear cochlea should be drawn as if it's the same size as the eardrum. If we go to our next slide, this is a more accurate picture. See how that inner ear is about the size of the eardrum? And your middle ear, there's your malleus, incus, and stapes bones, which, by the way, are the smallest bones of the body. Okay, the largest bone in the body is your thigh bone, your femur, F-E-M-U-R, femur. The smallest bone of the body is the stirrup. Tiny, tiny, tiny. They could all fit on a nickel or on a penny. Did you know we don't have pennies anymore in Canada? We gave them up. We use nickels, dimes, quarters, dollars, but they gave up the penny. Anyway, balance organs where I'm circling, inner ear. Sometimes the inner ear, or actually almost always, the inner ear is called the cochlea. C-O-C-H-L-E-A, cochlea. And see this pink area? That's the middle ear space, and you'll see a tube going down to your throat. That's the eustachian tube. Okay, so outer ear, what I'm circling, middle ear, inner ear, eighth cranial nerve going to your brain. This is eustachian tube. This is another picture, just from a different angle again. Outer ear and ear canal. Notice how the outer ear canal isn't straight. Your outer ear canal actually takes a bend. It has a corner in it. Eardrum, malleus, incus, stapes, balance organs, cochlea, eighth nerve going to the brain, and eustachian tube going down to the back of the throat. Yet another view, outer ear and ear canal. Now look at how the outer ear and ear canal, let's focus on that now. See how part of it, the skin covers cartilage, and part of it, the skin covers bone? That's a lot like your nose. The bottom of your nose, you can wiggle. The skin covers cartilage. The top of your nose, you can't. The skin covers bone. Okay, it's the same thing with your ear. Your ear canal, you can wiggle the outside of your ear, no problem. But the inner half of your ear canal, the skin covers bone. Just like the top of your nose, the skin covers bone. Okay, important to know. All right, and then the eardrum, middle ear, eustachian tube going down to the throat, cochlea, balance organs, hearing nerve going to the brain. So here's a close-up now of the outer ear. When you're looking at the outer ear, note again, the ear canal is about 1 inch long. How long is that in centimeters? About 2.5. Okay, and if you follow me in your notes, you'll see that all written there as well. So here, let's go. Top of your notes, outer ear is sometimes called the auricle or pinna. That's your actual outer ear itself. It's about the most useless part of your ear, okay? But it has a role. It has and we'll talk about that. Your ear canal is sometimes called your external auditory meatus. Now in Latin, the word meatus means tunnel, okay? It doesn't mean meet us, okay? Meatus means tunnel, E-A-M. So oftentimes your ear canal is called your EAM. It's about 1 inch long, 2.5 centimeters. Your eardrum is often called your tympanic membrane, and it separates the outer from the middle ear. And the function of your outer ear is to gather sound, but look what else it does. It resonates with the high frequencies of speech. Remember in acoustics today, hertz, big H, little z? So when you see high frequencies, think treble, high-pitched sounds of speech. And it sends this to the middle ear. Now, what do we mean by resonate? Well, like a wine glass at Christmas. Have you ever blown into a pop bottle? Or taken your finger lick it and rub it around the edge of a wine glass, that's resonating. That means resonance. Okay? Resonance, and you'll learn about this in acoustics too, it's the favorite vibrating frequency of an object. So, well, your outer ear does the same thing. It resonates with the high pitches of sound. It resonates with the high-pitched treble sounds of speech. That's why you have it, because the letter S is way softer than ah. Okay, if I say the word Saul, what's the loudest part? Or Paul, okay, ah is the loud part, is soft. If I say church, is the loud part, is softer. Is high-pitched, is low-pitched. So your outer ear naturally resonates with the high pitches to help us hear speech better, to help us hear the high-frequency consonants better. There you go. Anyway, let's share screen again. Go to your notes. What happens if you have no outer ears? Let's highlight that. You'll get a little bit of hearing loss. It says here 10 to 20 decibels. We'll cover what decibels are later on in acoustics. For now, just think you'll get a little bit of hearing loss, not much. Okay? You'll lose that resonance, whereby we hear the high-pitched consonants of speech. And what's the most common outer ear pathology? EAM, ear canal plugged with wax, earwax. Earwax is sometimes called cerumen. The word I'm highlighting there. That's the word we use for earwax. So earwax is the main problem with the outer ear. It'll cause a little bit of hearing loss, but please don't think you can become really hearing impaired if your ears are plugged with wax, because they're not. You'll get a little bit of hearing loss, but not much. Okay? So people who do ear candling and all this other weird crap are full of hooey. Okay? Earwax plugging the ears will cause maybe a 10 to 20% hearing loss. Not that much, a bit. Now let's move to the middle ear. And this is still not the heart and soul of hearing. It helps bring sound to where it's got to go, and where it's got to go is to the inner ear. It's all about the inner ear. So the outer ear gathers sound and it resonates with high pitches of speech. The middle ear takes that and brings it further. The middle ear is comprised of the eardrum, or tympanic membrane, TM. Interesting, the eardrum has 3 layers. 3 layers of skin. And those 3 layers, they come from each of the 3 original embryonic layers that you were when you were just conceived and inside mummy. Okay? There was 3 layers of skin that you had, ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm in the embryonic disc. And those still are the only 3 layers. The eardrum is the only part of the body that preserves all those 3 layers. Interesting. The middle ear space is closed. It's a closed space filled with air. Let's look at a picture of it. The middle ear, I'll blow this up and make it larger. The middle ear, behind your eardrum, you've got the 3 bones here. Now note what the one that's attached to the eardrum. Okay, note it is called the malleus. M-A-L-L-E-U-S, the malleus. The next bone is called the incus, I-N-C-U-S. The third bone, and the smallest of the 3, is called the stapes. So malleus, incus, stapes. So eardrum, notice the shape of the eardrum. It's concave like a speaker cone. It's not like a flat disc, is it? So here's your ear canal, and here's the eardrum. And notice how this first bone is attached just to the top half of it. You see that where I'm drawing with my cursor? And you have a couple of ligaments holding these bones in place. These bones are sometimes called the ossicular chain. Ossicles. Ossicles means bones. And there's the three of them stuck together like a chain. Ossicular chain is attached to the back of the eardrum. And notice where the stapes ends, right at the cochlea. There's your your inner ear, shaped like a snail shell. Cochlea is the Greek word for snail shell. Cochlea is spelled C-O-C-H-L-E-A, cochlea, the Greek word for snail shell. Now this middle ear space, as is shown in this picture, is closed. In other words, air is inside of here. But see this tube, the eustachian tube? It's normally closed. So this room is about as big as a sugar cube, and it's filled with air and the three bones. And the purpose of the middle ear is to take sound vibration that's hitting the eardrum and wiggle these three bones to push this stapes in and out of this little window. It's called the oval window. That's this circle right here, the oval window. And the stapes pushes in and out of that oval window. It's really kind of cool. So if I click on this now and we go to our notes, middle ear, let's read what we talked about. Tympanic membrane or eardrum, middle ear space, it's closed, filled with air. You have the three ossicles, three bones, the smallest in the body, the malleus, incus, and stapes, and of these, the stapes is the smallest. You then have your eustachian tube, and notice how that word is spelled. Not like chain, C-H-A-I-N, it's C-H-I-A-N, eustachian tube. And what does that do? It connects your middle ear space to the back of your throat. It's the allowance of new air to come in. This is your eustachian tube. It connects the back of your throat to the middle ear. That, by the way, is why children get earaches. They get a sore throat, and the infection crawls up that eustachian tube and infects the middle ear space. And then you get what's called an earache. And you know what? When you get older as an adult, your face gets longer and your eustachian tubes get more vertical. And so you get gravity working in your favor. And so infection doesn't crawl up the eustachian tubes as easily anymore. That's why little kids get earaches more than adults do, because their eustachian tubes are more horizontal. An adult's face, the eustachian tubes are more vertical. So that's why people grow out of earaches and middle ear infections. Anyway, the most common pathology of the middle ear is earaches and middle ear infections. So let's go to our notes here. The function of the middle ear is to change. Now circle that word, transduce. That means change. You're going to see that word lots in this field. Transduce means to change sound from one energy to another. That's what transducing means, okay? For example, if I talk into a microphone is a transducer. It's changing my sound waves into electricity. And a speaker, that's a transducer too, because it changes electricity from your radio or CD player, and it changes that into sound waves. So a transducing means to change energy from one form to another form. The middle ear changes sound waves into mechanical piston-like energy. Here, I'll show you. Let's share screen, and share, and look at PowerPoint. It changed, whoa, something happened there. The Sam Hill, there you go. So it changes sound waves into mechanical piston-like energy. The sound waves hit the drum, and then these bones go back and forth. Boom, 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 boom. And that's what I mean by transducing sound waves into mechanical energy. What else does the middle ear do? It increases sound pressure so it can activate the inner ear. Now, let's talk about what that means. your inner ear is filled with fluid. Okay, your cochlea, unlike the middle ear, isn't filled with air, it's filled with fluid. This is filled with air, this is filled with fluid. Now I'll stop sharing and bring something home to you. Hey, look, if you're swimming and you have your head under the water, and if I'm standing outside the pool and I'm talking to you, are you going to be able to hear me? No, because your head's underwater. My sound waves are going to bounce off the water. That's what would happen if you didn't have a middle ear. Your middle ear helps sound waves activate a fluid-filled cochlea. It helps sound waves get into the water, okay? Because otherwise the sound's going to bounce off the water. So look at it this way. Put your hand against your face. Put your hand right against the side of your face and push really hard against the side of your face with your hand. 1, 2, 3, you do that. Now, take your finger and push it against the side of your face really hard. And when you push your finger against the side of your face, it really hurts. Now, Grace, give it a shot. Okay, put your hand against the face and push hard. Okay, now stop. Now put your finger against and push really hard. And the finger hurt. The hand didn't. You know why? Because you increased the pressure. Pressure is force over an area. If sound hits a big eardrum, that's nothing. But when that pressure gets pointed onto the stapes bone, you've increased the pressure. Look, I'll show you in the picture here. Whoa, I hate it when that picture disappears like that. It drives me nuts. Here, so we'll look at it. Sound is hitting this big eardrum. Whoops, I'll have to share a screen. That would probably be a nice idea. So why don't you share screen here, see if I can find you. There we go. So I'll share screen so we can see it in the picture. There. Now look at the PowerPoint. Okay. So you've got sound hitting this big eardrum. That's what you were doing when you had your hand against your face. Okay? But now the force on that big area is converged onto this little area. That's like your finger against your face. And that's what your middle ear does. It increases the pressure of sound so that it can activate a fluid-filled cochlea. Because sound hitting a big area, that force gets converged onto a smaller area. You've just increased the pressure. Just like bicycle tires have way more air pressure than car tires do. Okay, so this is the real role of the middle ear, is to increase the sound pressure so that it can activate a fluid-filled cochlea. Pretty wild. Okay, so now let's look at our notes. There you have it. What happens if you have no middle ears? You get what they call a conductive hearing loss. Conductive means a blockage in the pathway. So if you've got an earache or an ear infection of your middle ear isn't working properly the way it's supposed to work. Okay? So conductive hearing loss is a blockage of sound to the inner ear. Just like earwax is also a conductive hearing loss. Look where I'm highlighting up here. What's the most common outer ear pathology? Ear plugged with wax. That also causes a conductive hearing loss. Do you see that? So conductive hearing loss means hearing loss due to a blockage of sound. Just like when you put an earplug in your ear, or you cover your ears with earplugs because you're going to mow the lawn and the lawnmower is really loud, you're giving yourself a conductive hearing loss on purpose because you want to block the sound. Okay? That's why people working in construction wear earplugs, so they can protect their inner ears from getting too much sound. So think of conductive hearing loss like a plug in the ear. That's exactly what it is. It's a plug in the ear. Only this time the plug is a ball of wax, or the plug might be a middle ear infection. Okay, so conductive hearing losses is one type of hearing loss, but it's not the most common hearing loss. Conductive hearing loss is usually found in children who have earaches or it might be found in people who've got a lot of earwax. Conductive hearing loss can be fixed. You can get the wax removed, and you can go on antibiotics and get rid of the ear infection. And then you've gotten rid of those earplugs, and then your hearing is back to normal again. Well, that's the story of conductive hearing loss in the outer and middle ear. So know this and know it well. Middle ear problems cause a blockage. Outer ear problems cause a blockage. And a blockage is a plug, and a plug is a conductive hearing loss. You're blocking the conduction of sound. Just like a wire conducts electricity. That's why they call it conductive. It just means the pathway. Now let's get into the most common hearing loss. And the most common hearing loss is actually not a conductive loss. The most common hearing loss is due to problems of the inner ear, right where I'm highlighting there. The inner ear and what they call the vestibular system, that's balance. Okay? But we want to focus mostly on the cochlea. There's that word, C-O-C-H-L-E-A, cochlea. The cochlea is hearing. Vestibular system means balance. Each has what they call an osseous and a membranous labyrinth. That means it's got tunnels through the bone, and it's also got membranes inside. Let's see if we can show you a picture. So, yes. If you cut off the top of someone's head and took out his brains, here's where the cochlea would be, and here's where the balance organs would be. Okay? So here's the cochlea. There would be the balance organs. If you look at a person from the front, here's the outer ear, ear canal, eardrum, middle ear, eustachian tube, inner ear. So it's kind of behind your eye. Okay, this is kind of where your inner ear sits. And look at the cochlea, shaped like a spiral, like a snail shell, and the tip of the cochlea is aimed toward the back of your eyes. That's how to kind of orient it. The skull has various bones, and the inner ear is actually in what's called the temporal bone. The temporal bone. So if you took away the temporal bone and turned it sideways, you'd see where the inner ear was. See if I can, okay. No more pictures that way, so I'll stop sharing here and we'll just read in our notes because we've got lots of places we can go here. Let's share the notes. Okay, sharing the notes. Don't worry about memorizing membranous and bony or osseous labyrinths right now. Just know that they have a bony portion and a membranous portion. Each one does, the balance organ and the cochlea, and they're filled with fluid. They're filled with fluid, filled with fluid. And inside, deep inside, are these tiny little hair cells. So deep inside the cochlea, here we go, deep inside the cochlea, you will find these. These are called hair cells. And hair cells, you got two sets. You got these sets here, this set here, and you got this row of three here. They do different things. But what does the inner ear or cochlea do? It transduces, it changes the mechanical energy from the middle ear, and it changes it into electrical energy so that the brain can read it, because your brain runs on electricity. Let's face it, it's electrical currents going up your nerves. So the middle ear changes sound waves into mechanical energy. The inner ear takes that mechanical energy and changes it into electrical energy. So your ear is a series of transducers. They change energy from one form to another. Now this is normal hair cells, normal hearing. But this is damaged hair cells. And you can't fix this. Okay, how many hair cells do you have in each cochlea? 15,000 in this cochlea and this one. How big is the cochlea? As big as the tip of your little finger. You got 15,000 hair cells in each cochlea. You can't get in there with a scalpel. You can't do hair cell transplants. Okay, when they're gone, they're gone. And when you have damage to hair cells, you got hearing loss, all right. And this is called sensory neural hearing loss. Let's share and show in our notes where that word is so you can see it, because it's the most common hearing loss in the book. Okay? Sensory neural loss. Go to our notes. Look at the bottom of your page. Sensory neural. Note the two words, sensory and neural. Okay? Let's read from here. Membranous labyrinths contain 15,000 hair cells. Inner hair cells, 3,000 of them. Outer hair cells, 12,000 of them. What do these look like? Here, inner hair cells, outer hair cells. I'll make it bigger. Inner hair cells, outer hair cells. Your inner hair cells send information to your brain. Your outer hair cells take information from your brain. So your cochlea is a two-way street. And by the way, that's kind of how your whole body is. Sensory information goes to your brain, and then your brain tells your muscles to contract. That's information out of your brain. So you've got ingoing and outgoing. And that's the way your whole system works. Well, the ear is no exception. Inner hair cells take info to your brain. Outer hair cells take info from your brain. But the kicker is, if you've got sensory neural hearing loss, you have damage to the hair cells. And when you've got damage to the hair cells, it's permanent. You can't fix it. 95% of hearing loss is damage to the hair cells. Okay? Most of the damage is to the hair cells. And that's 95% of people with hearing loss have damaged hair cells. They have sensory neural hearing loss. And sensory neural hearing loss is permanent. And the most common cause of sensory neural hearing loss is called old age hearing loss. Hearing loss in the elderly. The word for hearing loss in the elderly looks a little bit like Presbyterian. Okay? It's presbycusis. P-R-E-S-B-Y-C-U-S-I-S. P-R-E-S-B-Y-C-U-S-I-S. Presbycusis. Presbyterian means Church of the Elders. Presbycusis means hearing in the elders. And what is hearing in the elders? Trouble hearing treble. So it's the high frequency hair cells in the cochlea that are damaged. And the hearing loss is permanent. You can't fix it medically. It's sensory neural hearing loss. So sensory neural hearing loss means there's no blockage of sound getting to the ear. No, that's no problem. The outer ear is fine. There's no earwax. Middle ear is fine. There's no infection. Where's the problem? Inside the cochlea. What's the problem? Damage to the hair cells. Means you've got a hearing loss. Can't fix it. What's the solution? Hearing aids. It's the only solution. Hearing aids. That's why you have a field. Hearing instrument specialist. Okay, hearing instrument sciences. You're like optometrists, but for the ear. Opticians for the ear. That's how you can describe what you're studying. If any of your parents or people you know are asking you, what are you studying there at OTC? Well, I'm studying, it's kind of like optical, but for the ear. Oh, so you're learning how to test hearing. Yep, and I'm learning how to fit and prescribe hearing aids. Oh, cool. All right, and see, hearing aids don't work for the ear like glasses do for the eye. Here's why. Look, I'll show you a picture of that too. Just so we always get a grip on the context of our field, because it really is quite amazing. Here's a picture of the eye on the left. Okay, so when you're looking at the left here, what's happening? Light is going into the eye, and what's on the back of the eyeball? This black thing that I'm tracing here, that's called the retina. And the retina changes light into electricity. And then look at the optical nerve. It sends the electrical current to the brain. And most problems with vision there is, look at this, the light isn't properly hitting the retina. It's not hitting the retina very well. So you wear glasses in front of the eye to refocus the light so that it does focus properly on the retina. And then, as we say, God's in his heaven and all's well with the world. But now look at the ear. And admittedly, this is sort of a poor picture of the ear, but look at the yellow. That's the ear canal, part of the ear canal. Look at this line that I'm tracing with my cursor. That's the eardrum. Here's the, see, this is not the problem. See, I drew an X here. This is not the, that if our problems were like vision, then hearing loss would be in the middle ear and the outer ear. It would be a blockage of sound transmission getting to where it's got to go. But that's not the thing. That isn't it. Really, I mean, if I do this, if I go to this picture here, I should just take a line here and draw here and make it, here, I'll make it black. There you go. And make it thick. There you go. Make it real, give it a high weight here. There you go. Okay. They're not equal. Vision loss and hearing loss are not equal. Okay. Because with this here, I'll take that away and this away. The problem in the ear is this. It's the cochlea. The cochlea is the retina, in quotes, of the ear. It changes sound into electricity. It takes the mechanical energy from the middle ear and changes that into electricity. Just like the retina on the left here changes light into electricity, the inner ear or hair cells change sound into electricity. And in hearing loss, that's where the damage is. Whereas in vision loss, that's not where the damage is. In vision loss, it's usually that the eyeball is too long or too short. And so light isn't properly, look where my cursor is, it's not reaching the back of the eye. So you wear glasses to refocus the light so it does hit the back of the eye. And then Bob's your uncle, it's all good. Hearing loss is like me going up to the back of your eyes and going, scratch. Now I've ruined your eyes, the back of your eyes. Now go ahead and wear your glasses. Okay? So hearing aids for the ear are not like eyeglasses for the eye. Vision loss is mostly conductive, a blockage of light reaching the retina. So you wear these to refocus the light on the retina. That's why glasses are cheaper than hearing aids, and they work better than hearing aids. And that doesn't mean that optical is smarter than hearing. It means that the nature of damage to the eye is very different from the nature of damage to the ear. With the eye, the light isn't properly reaching the retina, so these refocus light. With the ear, it's like the retina itself, and I say retina in quotes, the hair cells themselves are damaged. And so hearing aids can make sounds louder, and so hearing aids will make sounds better, but they won't make the hearing perfect. That's why they're called hearing aids. It's an aid. They're like a cane for a bad knee. They help, but they don't replace the real McCoy. Okay? Here you cannot, you should think of the cochlea just like the nursery rhyme, Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. And all the king's horses and king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. That's the cochlea. You can't fix it. You can aid it, you can help, but you're not going to be able to transplant new hair cells. When they're gone, they're gone. And the same, guess what the second most common cause of hearing loss in the world is? Noise. Noise-induced hearing loss. If you can hear someone's headphones and you're not listening to the headphones, that guy is going to be a client in your office very soon because he too is damaging his hair cells. We don't stare at the sun because we know you're going to go blind. But people somehow think that the ear is impervious to noise, and it isn't. So elderly people in Africa have better hearing than elderly people in the United States. And you know why? Because Africa has less noise pollution. We have a lot of noise pollution, and excess noise is the second most common cause of hearing loss in the world. After aging, which is presbycusis, it's noise-induced hearing loss, N-I-H-L. All righty, share screen, back to the notes, see what we got here. Good. So what happens here if you have no inner ears? You're as deaf as a post. The inner ear is everything. With inner ear hair cell damage, you have sensory neural hearing loss. Sensory refers to outer hair cell damage. Neural refers to inner hair cell damage. You will learn more about this later in the course. Not here, but later. You'll also learn about it in hearing disorders, which you'll be taking in the summertime. Look what it says here. Top of page 2, most common type of sensory neural hearing loss, and this is how we abbreviate it, SNHL, okay, SNHL, SNHL, sensory neural hearing loss. The most common type is presbycusis, and look what it says, mild to moderate, high frequency hearing loss, high HZ, you can tell the Canadian in me, I just said Z, big letter H, little z, that's hertz, high frequency, in other words, due to aging. This is 95% of all hearing loss. This is the main client you will see in your clinic. Look what I've highlighted there. The second most common sensory neural hearing loss is noise-induced hearing loss. The sad thing about this is that it is preventable. Noise-induced hearing loss, people don't have to have it. Okay, a lot of people do have it because they've never protected their ears enough. Our ears were meant to hear soft voices over the crackling of a fire. Our ears were never meant to hear the clanging of steel on steel. We were meant to hear the occasional roar of a lion in the distance, the thunderclap here and there, but basically we have noise pollution. And excess noise kills hair cells. And killed hair cells causes sensory neural hearing loss. So sensory neural hearing loss is the big one. This is the one that you are usually going to be helping with hearing aids. 95% of hearing loss in the world is sensory neural due to damage of hair cells inside the inner ear or cochlea. All right, now we are winding down. We've only got another 10 minutes, so this is all good. Eighth cranial nerve, I've highlighted there, that takes info from your cochlea and brings it to the brain. It's only an inch long. You have one for each ear, one from the right, one from the left. If you have no eighth nerves, you're deaf. No messages are reaching the brain. Sometimes eighth nerve damage, and they call it the eighth nerve because you have 12 pairs of cranial nerves. Look what I'm highlighting here. You have 12 pairs of cranial nerves. What are cranial nerves? Nerves that come off of the spinal cord inside your skull. Okay? You have 12 pairs. You have one pair for your tongue, another pair for the eyes, another pair for smell, several different pairs for the cheeks and moving the face. So cranial nerves are inside your skull, and you have 12 pairs. And the 8th pair is the auditory nerve, okay, going from the ear to the brainstem. The brainstem is just the spinal cord inside your skull. That's all it is. And if you see that on a PowerPoint slide, I'll show you what that hole in the skull looks like. Because we do have that slide, I remember. I'll just show it to you here. See that hole in the base of the skull? That's where your spinal cord enters the brain. And then your brain fills all of this. So the spinal cord in your brain, there's 12 pairs of nerves that go to that spinal cord inside your brain, and those are called your cranial nerves. The 8th pair, there you go, 8th pair is the auditory pair. That's why we keep calling it the 8th cranial nerve, okay? So, share slide again here, notes here. If you had no 8th nerves, you're deaf because no messages will reach your brain. 8th nerve pathology is often called retrocochlear pathology because it's behind the cochlea, retro to the cochlea. You can get a tumor there, and it's benign, but it can kill you. Okay, so if you have an 8th nerve tumor, you've got to get it removed. ABR, auditory brainstem response, is a test that audiologists, not you, but audiologists do in order to tell 8th nerve tumors. What are audiologists? I'm an audiologist. I'm also a hearing instrument practitioner or a hearing instrument specialist. Audiologists have an AUD degree. They study at Missouri State University in Springfield, right near Ozarks Technical College, and they have a clinical doctorate in audiology. They know how to test babies' hearing. They know how to do brain waves. They also do what you do, fitting adults with hearing aids. They just have a bigger scope of practice, okay? But most of the money to be made in our field is fitting adults with hearing aids. So the hearing instrument specialist, like you are going to be, with a 2-year college degree, can do much the same as an audiologist does, because most audiologists are fitting adults with hearing aids. That's where the money is. But audiology takes a bachelor's degree, and then you got to go for another 4 years to get your AUD. Capital A, small u, capital D, AUD. And that's the doctorate in audiology. They don't do surgery, okay? But audiologists are kind of like optometrists, and hearing instrument science specialists are kind of like opticians. So one's a university trained, one's college trained, but really you're doing a lot of the same things. Just thought I'd throw that in there, okay? Whoops, I need to share screen. So make that smaller, let's share the screen, we can finish. All right, go to the notes here. Central auditory nervous system. Don't memorize any of this now, we're not there, okay? That's just the brain's area of hearing. The hearing areas of the brain itself. We'll spend a week looking at that. The last week of our course, we'll spend looking at the central auditory nervous system. Here's a few terms to think about in our field. Itis is infection. Algia is pain. So the word oto, O-T-O, means ear. Otalgia means ear pain. If you have itis being infection, otitis is ear infection. If the word plasty here means plastic surgery, otoplasty means plastic surgery of the ear. Okay? Oma means tumor. Osseous means bone. Ectomy is surgical removal. So these are just suffixes, endings of words that you'll often notice in our field. And it's a good idea to have a good grip as to what those are, okay? Otoplasty is going to be plastic surgery on the ear, okay? Otitis is going to be ear infection. Oto is always ear. Conductive loss we looked at. Sensory neural loss we looked at. And then hearing aids and sensory neural loss often mix like oil and water. Clients are often unhappy with their hearing aids because they get poorly counseled as to why and what's going wrong. Your job is going to be explaining to people to have realistic expectations about the limitations of the hearing aids. In other words, I can't make your hearing back to when you were 10 years old. You could say that to a 70-year-old person. I can't make your hearing back to when we were 10, but I can turn the clock back 10 years. See the difference? I can make your hearing better. That's with a hearing aid, but it's not going to make your hearing perfect. It's not going to work quite for the ear like glasses do for the eye. If you teach your clients to have realistic expectations about the limitations of hearing aids, you'll have a lot happier client. That's why one of the courses you will take next year is called counseling, explaining. How do you explain to the client so that the client isn't thinking, wow, I paid $6,000 for these and they don't work as good as these do, and I only paid $60 for these. You know, so a lot of success in our field relies on being able to explain things very clearly to people. No, you're not laying out anatomy pictures and all of that stuff. I sometimes show pictures of the hair cells once in a while. Once in a while, I show this kind of a picture here where I'm showing pictures of hair cells here and here. Once in a while, I do that, but basically, you could say this. Whoa, I want to go to that picture. Hang on a second here. Hang on. Okay, go to this guy here, and I'll make it big. Normal hair cells, damaged hair cells. How do you counsel? Perfect hearing looks like this. Impaired hearing looks like this. And it doesn't matter whether you're in the States or whether you're in Shanghai, China. Because on the left here, this says perfect hearing looks like this in Chinese, and impaired hearing looks like this. So I always call these 4 slides like my Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John slides. I mean, those are my 4 gospel slides. I often show those to clients, really, so that they realize that hearing aids for the ear are different from eyeglasses for the eye. Here's another picture here that a lot of people don't look at but should. This is kind of weird, and I'll finish with this. Look at these numbers on the bottom. These numbers on the bottom represent decibels. 0 being really soft, 90 being really loud, okay? And this axis here talks about your perception of that. So look at normal. The diagonal line where my cursor is moving. Normal hearing people, 10 decibels sounds really soft. Normal hearing people, 50 sounds comfortable. Normal hearing people, 90 plus sounds really loud. See that? When you've got hair cell damage, when you've got this stuff, whoops, when this happens, then you can't hear till about 50 or 60. And now 50 or 60 sounds very soft, but yet 90 to 100 still sounds too loud. You see that? If I stop sharing, this is like, here's my ceiling of loudness tolerance. Here's my floor. With hearing loss, my floor got higher. It's like I'm no longer standing in this room with my feet on the floor and the ceiling up here. Now I'm standing on my desk, but the ceiling hasn't changed. Okay? 90 decibels is still going to be sounding loud to someone with sensory neural loss. It's just that he can't hear until the sounds are about 50, whereas you can hear all the way down to 0. So you can hear from 0 to 100. He can only hear from 50 to 100. The floor went up. The ceiling of loudness tolerance didn't change. So the person now requires like 50 decibels to hear, whereas you required 0 to hear. So you can hear everything from 0 to 100 or 90. He can only hear from like 45 or 50 to 90. And look what hearing aids have to do. They've got to amplify soft sounds by a lot, this bottom arrow, and loud sounds by little or nothing at all. And that partly explains why hearing aids cost so much. There are amplifiers that have to change the amount by which they are amplifying all the time. If I'm talking softly, it's amplifying a lot. If I start to raise my voice and get louder, the hearing aid automatically backs off. Weird, huh? There's a word for that. It's called compression. This is my little textbook, Compression for Clinicians. You'll be using this next year in your courses on hearing aids. Hearing aids are quite interesting. They change the amount of amplification depending on how loud the sound is coming into the hearing aid. Why? Because of hair cell damage, and hair cell damage causes soft sounds not to be heard, but yet loud sounds are still heard just as loudly as they are to normal hearing people. Weird, huh? Interesting field. Okay, we are done today, 1:20. Next week, we'll look at the outer ear specifically. So for next week, be sure to go into your notes and print up, I believe it's Unit 2, and that's going to be called outer ear. Print up the notes from Unit 2, and we'll spend next week focusing completely on the outer ear. Today was just an overview of everything. We just looked at the whole thing from a bird's eye view. Tomorrow, next week, like a hawk, we're going down to get that mouse, and it's going to be the outer ear. Okay, I'll stop recording here, and I say thank you to Grace for having shown up. She's the only one who showed up live. Hey, Grace, you're the only one that'll pass. All right, good stuff. Thanks for showing up, and we'll see you next week, okay? All right, I'll stop recording here.